Daisy, let me start with you. I mean, you've been reporting on politics for a long, long time. Do you think that things will be changing anytime soon? Do you think another party like the SDP can come in and shake things up?
Well, I've not only been reporting on it, but I've been living this story for most of my life. I don't know if Rod knows this, but my dad stood for the original SDP in the early 80s, when the original SDP was formed by the Fab Four, as they were called in those days. And, of course, one of their main planks then was calling for proportional representation, and it doesn't seem that we're much further on. And, of course, none of this is going to happen until there is some sort of PR. And I just say to Rod, apart from this scenario where the Labour Party wakes up to the fact, as you say, that it can't win a first-past-the-post election, and it starts voting in a different way if there were to be a vote in the House of Commons to change the voting reform. But even then we know that the Conservatives would no way vote for that, so I can't see it happening.
It's very difficult. And, of course, we had a vote on the referendum, on an AV referendum, didn't we, about, what was it, 7-8 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
Under David Cameron. And it was pretty decisively defeated. Because it's also, it's not just Parliament, it's also difficult to get your voice across, you know, when you're a minority party, even if you're a minority party which has vast support amongst people in the country. And, you know, it's not just the SDP. I would include the Green Party in that as well. Seriously underrepresented for the number of people who I believe agree with Green policies. So it is very, very difficult. All you can hope for is that there is some sort of coalition, that the Labour Party wakes up and sees that there has to be some sort of coalition and therefore goes towards proportional representation, which is obviously something which is wanted temporarily, at least, by the SNP, by the Liberal Democrats, by the Green Party.
But, Rod, would proportional representation and a hung parliament forever get the SDP any closer to power, or Reform UK? Ultimately, what Labour could do is simply team up with the SNP and they would have the votes stitched up in the House of Commons.
No, what it would do is it would give more airtime and coverage and more space in the papers to other parties which were not, you know, the Labour Party or the SNP. Because I think the Labour Party, I think as soon as you opened it up, it's kind of like opening a Pandora's box, in that I think the support for the Labour Party would immediately dissolve. I just think in the seats, in the places where it was set up to represent the poor people, the party which I was a member of for 37 years, proudly, because I thought it was meant to represent working class votes, simply doesn't do that anymore, and people will not vote for it anymore. And the greater number of alternatives you have to the Labour Party, the better that is. You know, whether it be those who sit at the moment, I mean, all the coalition would be in the same area. The SNP, the Greens, the Lib Dems and Labour all agree, are all on one side of the culture war, and so pretty much are the Conservatives. Yeah. You know, that's the problem. That's the problem we have.
Well, Albie, you're a Conservative. Do you agree that your party has gone horribly woke?
First of all, I don't really like the word woke, but that's not the first time I've ever said that before.
How about they've adopted extreme political correctness?
No, I don't either.
Which so many of those red wall voters absolutely loathe.
Well, they all voted for us in the last general election, so I would contest that as well.
Well, I think they thought the Prime Minister was going to fight this extreme political correctness.
No, I think they voted for us because they wanted us to deliver Brexit, and that's exactly what we did. But on the point about political realignment in this country, there really is no point in having the conversation unless we're going to have a serious discussion about first-past-the-post versus proportional representation. That's really what it's all about. We can sit here and talk about how the parties don't represent what the people want, but until that is really the point of the conversation, it's never going to happen. And me and my party are against proportional representation.
Why would your party that's got 80 seats in the House of Commons be against PR?
Because it's first past the post. It's first past the post that has got us our 80-seat majority.
Well, that's
yeah, but that's just admitting that turkeys don't vote for Christmas.
And delivered stable governments in this country for hundreds of years. Would we really want a political system like we see in Germany, where they can't even decide on who their leader's going to be?
Albie.
And it's going to take to happen. Is that what we want in Britain? No, it's not what
I wouldn't be too complacent about those red wall seats, Albie, if I were you, mate. I think you've probably just lost half of them today. You know, I think, because that is the other thing that we're sick of. We're sick of your party's sleaze. We're sick of it. And the Conservative Party has, I think, probably made its most serious political mistake in the last 10 years today in the refusal to suspend Owen Paterson. And that will resonate everywhere you go up here in the north, where people don't get 500,000 quid to go snivelling round cabinet ministers. And you know, I think you're a bit complacent about the red wall seats, even without Owen Paterson, because you're right. People voted Conservative partly because they loathed Jeremy Corbyn's own self-hatred of Britain and his alliance with any terrorist organisation which loathes Britain, and they also wanted Brexit done, which Boris has indeed done. But it's a lot of those votes were people holding their noses. There are so many things in the Conservative agenda they simply don't agree with.
The Owen Paterson story is a gift for any Labour MP canvassing at the next election, Albie.
It is. I'm pretty surprised at what has happened today. It does feel a little bit like we've handed the opposition a bat with which to beat us with at the next general election. And I think the majority, a lot of people in the public will look at what's happened today and think, I'm not really sure that moving the goalposts is right when there is a rule broken. It does seem very one rule for us and another rule for them. And actually, there are a lot of Conservatives who are equally as shocked as you are, Rod, at what has happened today. Yeah. You know, I'm in many WhatsApp groups of Conservative Party members who are saying behind closed doors, I'm really surprised that this is what the government has put a three-line whip on our Conservative MPs to vote through. But 111 Conservative MPs didn't vote for the amendment tabled today. And I think we will just have to see how this story develops. But I just want to be very clear that there are many Conservatives out there who feel very uncomfortable with what has happened in the House of Commons today.
And I think, as Rod hinted, they'll be uncomfortable at many measures. Uncomfortable that seemingly a man of the people, a libertarian Prime Minister, cannot say that only women have a cervix. A government that destroys the right to demonstrate and to complain about any public policy by taking to the streets. Introducing the online safety bill, which is an attack on free speech. All of these things don't sound very Conservative to me. That's before you get to shutting down the economy and controlling people's lives for a year and a half in the name of controlling a virus. You know, there's a long charge sheet, isn't there, Rod? Let me ask you, Amy, whether you feel politically homeless and whether you'd like to see a shake-up in the composition of the House of Commons.
Hello, Rod. How are you?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I do often say that realistically, I often feel a little bit politically homeless. But the thing that I wanted to, well, I kind of do and I kind of don't, but you and Mark have both said it now. And it's, you said that the Conservatives encouraged the joy of transitioning. And I just feel like that was a little bit of misinformation on your part.
Well, the Prime Minister cannot say that only women have a cervix.
Because...
It strikes me as a stranger mental block.
But are we saying...
Amy, I wish it...
Go on.
I wish it was. I wish it was overstating the case, but it is under the Conservative government that Stonewall has been allowed to put into our schools information which tells kids as young as 5 in some cases, about how some people might feel the need to transition.
Yeah.
And I had a daughter who was at a state school which was full of this utter bilge. And I can tell you that by the time she left that state school, because we got her out of it, at least 7 of her friends now wish to be known by different pronouns. And it is an affectation. It's a fashion. And it's been encouraged by a Conservative government, and it's harmful.
I disagree
to people's health.
I think it's just acknowledging a very tiny minority, and surely the job of any government and society is to protect a tiny minority.
It's not though. It's not though, Amy. I mean, that's the nice way of looking at it, but it's not. It's telling the girls, and sometimes pushing them into it, if it goes to extreme cases, that this is the route that perhaps they should follow. That if they feel unhappy in a woman's body, that, and you know, my daughter was a bit of a tomboy. And very outdoorsy, like playing and with boys as well. You know, a lot of people are very worried that girls in that particular bracket are being encouraged to become boys, and a lot of my lesbian friends say the same things.
I think this makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable, because it feels like when we first started educating children about same-sex relationships and people came out and said it's encouraging it, it's bad. It's not. It's just acknowledging that it's a reality for many people and trying to encourage a bit of equality and understanding.
I thought you said it was a tiny minority.
The tiny minority of trans people in the world, but they exist. And if you say only women can have a cervix,
no, but
you're denying that they exist.
Vanishing. But if you can't see that there's a political agenda there, Amy, I mean, there clearly is, you know, which is in effect the abolition of what they call bourgeois gender stereotypes. I mean, it's an absurdity. But anyway, I mean, that's not really the point of you know, the third party. I mean, if my guess is that if you talk to most voters, you know, 60 to 70% are pretty much sick of this gender obsession and the race obsession which we have at the moment. I think, and that's where I think that the new parties could actually make a difference. Obviously, the Greens can't do that because they are right at the forefront of it. But
well, look, I do wish the SDP well, and Reform UK and any other insurgent parties, because I completely agree with you, Rod, that this duopoly must be broken up.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.